Okay, we are up to Mishlei 11:19, and we have a little bit of a fork in the road before we even start. Okay, so let me read it first. Let's read and translate first. So Cain tzedakah l'chaim umaradef ra'a lamoso. So if you ignore what's down here, how would you be inclined to translate Cain?
Like yes or correct?
Okay, that is actually correct, but that's not how I would have been inclined to do it. Cain usually means similarly or likewise or thus. Okay, that's how that's like, like you say this v'chein that, so that's why I mentioned last time, and I'm mentioning again here. There, it almost reads as though it is a continuation of last week's pasuk. So Rasha osep ula sheker v'zureh tzedakah secher emes Cain tzedakah l'chaim u'muradif lamoso. Okay, but what we're going to do is we're going to try to not learn it that way unless we have extra time or unless we have to. Okay, so I'm leaving this here in case, like, it sparks thoughts, but we're going to take the other translation. So Avital's translation of Cain is like Al HaTorah's definition here: right, veritable, or honest. Okay, so how do you say, Avital?
Yeah, I said like either like yes, like Cain or low, or like right.
Okay, so let's say yes or right, or veritably. I guess truthfully is the more normal way to say that nowadays. Truthfully, okay. Tzedakah l'chaim umaradif ra'a lamosa. How would you translate that?
Like righteousness is to life.
Okay. Righteousness is to or for life.
And in pursuing Ra, like death, limoto, tis death.
Yeah, and pursuing Ra, and I'm just going to go Ra here, meaning evil or badness, to his death. Okay. Again, very weird to read. I feel like we're gonna have to add or manipulate words here. Okay, so let us look at what the others say here. How do I delete this? See if I can delete without doing what I always do. What's going on here? Nope, it's not working. I guess I do have to click this, and then it opens this, and then I delete this. Okay. All right. Metzudas Tzion also says Cain is inyano kumo emes. So it's like truthfully, or v'tzedek, and or right. Kumo, like it says when the Benos Tzlavcha talked to Moshe and proposed their solution, and Moshe says Cain Benos Tzlavcha dovros, or maybe that's Hashem speaking. Truthfully, did the daughters of Tzlavcha speak? Okay. Sadigon says Kach hatzadik l'chaim v'rodef hara lamoso. So Sadigon is saying such or thus, so he is connecting it to the previous one. All right, again, we're not going to start off with that. And then Targum says, let's see here. Targum says, Heichna man da'ave tzidkasa l'chaye netir u'deradef bishta netir lamosa. So I think, let's say, thus, man da'avid tzidkasa, one who acts righteously, l'chaye netir, will be preserved for life. U'deradef bishta, but one who chases Ra will be preserved for death. Okay. Art scroll, one who gives sincere charity. Okay, so you see how they're doing it? They're saying Cain. They also mean say that Cain means like truth, but they're saying tzedakah is what do you call giving tzedakah. So they say Cain tzedakah, which is sincere charity, and then they have to add in one who gives sincere charity is consigned to life. But the pursuer of evil is consigned to his death. Okay, we'll keep that up there in case that ends up being a different way to take. Living Nago also says true charity leads to life, but the pursuit of evil leads to death. Okay, so they say the word leads, and then altar. Okay, here comes an altar move here. Okay, look what altar says: a righteous son is for life, but the pursuer of evil is for his death. Okay, can anyone explain where the altar gets this from? a righteous son?
The Haggadah?
Nope.
Chacham? No.
No. How's he reading this in the pasuk? How's he translating the pasuk? You got to think like
like
an
Tzedakah,
academic.
like he who is righteous.
Nope.
No, I am not an academic. I don't know.
Okay, so here's what Alter says. I just took a photo from his book. A righteous son. The Masoretic text, okay, meaning that's the one that we used, like the Masorah, reads ken tzedakah, thus righteousness, which does not make much sense and produces a poor parallelism with the second verse in a series of proverbs where the parallelism is usually neat, even pat. This translation adopts a reading shown in some Hebrew manuscripts as well as the Septuagint and Syriac, ben tzedakah, literally son of righteousness. So he's saying that our version of ken is a typo, right? That really it was Ben and then got changed. And again, this is the look. We do care about manuscripts and such, but we also do have a Masorah, and we're not so quick to throw away that Masorah. The Masoretic text was maintained by the Chachamim of the generations, and I'm sure they also looked at this and said, "Oh, that doesn't make much sense," but they didn't just throw it away, right? So that's how he gets this. So we're gonna go ahead and delete him because I don't think our practice is not to just like ignore what the Masorah says. If there's machlokas in the Masorah itself, so fine, right? But like we're not just gonna like if all the meforshim say it's ken and all of the manuscripts that we have say that, then we're not gonna just like throw it away. Okay, so there you go. Let us just make this a little bit smaller here and like that. Okay, what are the questions and problems?
I've been thinking a lot, and I feel like a lot of the pasukim with like tzaddik and Russia is like, oh, if you're if you do good, you're tzaddik, you'll live, and if you die, I'm sorry, if you're Russia, you'll end up dead or something bad happens.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
like,
yeah, it definitely.
I don't know why it's like just dawning on me, but it's like,
yeah, that was the challenge of the 10th chapter when we had a lot of psukim that sounded like it was just repeating itself about the same message for the tzaddik and the Russia. So, just to compare, so the challenge here is to get a chiddush, right? But just to set this up with what we did last time, we noticed that the last pasuk was not talking about a tzaddik, it was talking about zorea tzedakah, and that's kind of where a big idea of ours emerged. It was contrasting the Russia with the zorea tzedakah. So here too, I mean, maybe I'm giving away a question already. Yeah, I won't take questions. Yeah, Yosef.
In what way are you going to your death, and in what way are you going to your life? And just the most basic question, like
yeah,
just find Chaim and most.
Okay, so let's break that into two questions. Okay, so what are Chaim and Mavis in this context? And then in what way is the person going lechaim and limoso?
See, that's the thing. It's just way too obvious now. It's like,
yeah, that's why you have to look for,
like what's the finish? What's the finish? What's the
yeah. Okay, so we can say that what is the hava amina or the chiddush? This sounds like dozens of other mishlei psukim. Yeah.
Also for the characters, are we just taking this as like a general, like this is an action and this is an action, or is it a specific person?
Okay, so question is, who is each half talking about, right? Is this talking about anyone who does ra'ah or what was the other thing? Or tzedakah? Who is Muradif Ra'ah or Tzedakah? Or is this talking about or two a specific types of individuals? Yeah. So there's another, yeah. This is kind of related to, I'll just say on a related note, who is the audience? Yeah, I don't know if that's if these should be one question, but my mind is telling me that it should be right now, so I'm gonna go with my mind. Oh, we didn't ask,
Yeah, because Tzedakah is here.
yeah, we got to ask that. That's a good point. Okay, so what is tzedakah in this context? So is it, basic translation question, is it righteousness or charity? Okay. Yeah. And then yeah, so someone said something else.
Yeah. In our translation, is Cain like adding on to the level
Yeah.
of tzedakah? It's like true
Okay.
righteousness versus righteousness, or like what's the
So
difference?
what is the word Cain doing? Okay, right. So is it, so if it's an expression of like veracity, right? Like yes, or right, or truthfully, then why do you need to say it? Right? You could just say Cain before every Mishlei pasuk, right? Truthfully, a Russia does Pula Sheker and Zorei Tzedakah Seker Emes, you know? And then if it is qualifying tzedakah, like true tzedakah, what is it adding, right? As opposed to what, right? Like false tzedakah. It's also funny, I mean, maybe this is actually an answer to its own question, but like we did get through just saying true reward, and it's funny that it's going to go to another word for truth that is not from emes. I don't know. I mean, the other, just the word Cain, I think, does come from the shoresh of like ready or prepared or firm. I think it's like related to that, like hachana, even though it's not the exact same thing. So I don't know if that matters. Yeah. We did not ask what ra'ah is. So let's ask what ra'ah is. What is ra'ah in this context? And then what does it mean? Whoa. What does it mean to be meradef ra'ah?
Is there a Cain ra?
Yeah, that's a good question also, right? So the Cain, yeah, I guess I'm gonna add this to the Cain question. How, if at all, does the Cain in the first half relate to the second half? Okay, and in fact, I'll show you, I'm going to spoil this right now because I think this actually is not a full translation or not a full interpretation. It's just a reading. Where is he? Yeah, the Rinachmias, let's move him up in the world. The Rinachmias says, you could read it like this. He says, oops, those are not numbered. Okay. V'nucha lefarsh tama pasuk u'mishpato Cain tzedakah l'chaim kim meradef ra'a lemoso. So he's learning Cain as a similarly, okay, and he says vav umaradef nikra vav hahashva'a. The vav in umaradef is a vav of comparison. Okay, so let me just write this out the way he's saying it. Okay, this is the Rinachmias. He translates it as just get that again. Cain tzedakah l'chaim. Oh, see, okay, you guys are too well, actually, you know, I don't know, Ariel, when do you take the SATs?
Yeah, I didn't do very well.
Okay, did they have analogies on the SATs in your day, or that was already phased out? I feel like it was already phased out.
I don't know.
Okay,
I try to forget trauma.
Okay, that makes sense. So in my day, they had this thing. They had, it was a whole category of questions in the verbal section, and they had analogies. They would say like a glass is to water as a bowl is to, and then you'd have to like do multiple choice for what, you know, like cereal or like, you know, pancakes or whatever, you know. And then they realized that these are very, 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 very culturally and racially biased. You know, that like if you grow up in a place where like they, you know, they don't, if you come from a place where they use chopsticks, you're not going to get any analogies that have to do with like salad fork, right? But that's the format that he's taking here. He's saying, what did he say? I just lost it. Cain tzedakah l'chaim kim meradef ra'a lemoso. Okay. that just as tzedakah is to life, so too one who pursues ra is to death. Okay, so that is relating the Cain in the first half to the second half. It's just basically making it, it's extending it to both sides. Kidis, kach that. Yeah. Okay. Are these all of our questions? I feel like there might be more. Well, I guess we should ask the general question here, which is there a specific practical application beyond pursue tzedakah and don't pursue ra'ah? Right? I mean, that's clearly the message, but is there a more specific idea? I would kind of hope so, especially given Ariel's question about like what's the havmin or what's the chiddush. Yeah. Minor question, which I feel like if Zach were here, he would want to know the answer to. It is a little weird that it says lemoso, to his death, whereas the first half is just l'chayin, to life in general, So I'm going to add that. Okay, minor question. Why is it l'chayin, non-possessive, versus lemoso, right? His death, possessive. Okay.
I mean, it also doesn't say, like in the first half of the pasuk, like, is there a difference in pursuing tzedakah for life versus, truthfully righteous is to life? Like, is there a difference between that?
Is there a difference?
Like, the second half of the pasuk says, pursuing ra is to his death.
Yeah.
But the first half of the pasuk should say maybe pursuing righteousness is to life
Right.
versus...
Right. There should be some verb there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So let's just say here, what does it mean to be maradif ra'ah? And then like, is there an opposite? Is there, I guess, a parallel of maradif implied in the first half? Okay, I feel like these are all of the questions. So let us think.
General grammatical question.
Yeah.
When you have a mem before the verb, does that mean it's a person who's doing it?
Good question. How did the English translations? Whoops, I didn't save it. Yeah. Okay, hold on. I got it. Sorry, just got to do a little bookkeeping here. How is this going to work? I'm going to go like this, and then do analysis, notes, and then undo everything we just did. Sorry about this. Oh, not undo everything. Undo everything that I did since the beginning of Shiur. Not everything. Okay. And then save. Oh, I did it wrong. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Okay, hold on just a second. Translation. All right, this one we save. Okay, we save that. And I was looking at true charity leads to life, pursuer of evil. Yeah, so you see article translates as pursuer of evil, alter translates as pursuer, but then Living Knock translates as the pursuit. So I guess I don't know the answer. I guess it's up for debate. Okay, let me just go back and redo all of this and then resave this with the correct file name. Analysis notes. Okay, replace. Okay, now, yeah, like I don't know what the difference between meradif and rodif is. Okay, let's think. Here's another question, actually. I'm going to ask this in a general way. Okay. How are these two opposites? And the reason why I'm asking that is because, I mean, I guess this is more of a question if you translate tzedakah as charity, that meradif ra'ah is very broad, and tzedakah as an act of tzedakah would be very narrow. And now you might just say, okay, fine, so then don't translate it as charity, translate it as righteousness. But I just thought I'd mention that. Okay, anybody have anything?
I have a thought.
Okay.
I'm not sure where it's gonna go, but maybe you could say that, I don't think I don't think the pasuk is really defining the individual in this pasuk as either a tzaddik or as a wicked person, or as
Okay.
someone
Yeah,
who's wrong. I think,
I'm inclined to think that also.
yeah, I think maybe you could say that, maybe someone who is talking to an individual who is on the path of doing tzedakah or showing the value of, that lifestyle, and showing the harm in pursuing wickedness.
Yeah. So I definitely agree with that, and I think it also is in line with it does make sense to follow our last pasuk, even if you don't read the word Cain as a connecting word. That that the last pasuk was also emphasizing that even if you're not a tzaddik and you do an act of tzedakah, then that's going to have a beneficial effect. And this would be like a continuation of that thought, that even if you're not a tzaddik, your tzedakah will lead you to life. And then the second half, the first half of the last pasuk did talk about a Russia. This would be saying that even if you're not a Russia, if you are a meradif ra'ah, whatever that means, then that's gonna lead you to death. And the havmina, I guess, according to that approach, is the havmina on both sides is you might think that you need to be a tzaddik in order for this to bring you to life, or you might, if you're just meradif ra'ah but you're not a Russia itself, then like that's not going to lead to your death, and that's why the pasuk is telling you that it would. Yeah, I have an example of that. I'm just trying to think whether I want to share it now or wait. I'm gonna wait in case it gets more what do you call it? Fits better with what someone says. Yeah, Avital.
Mine's also just like a small thought. Like
Sure.
I don't at all have like I don't even know if we could call it half baked.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the missing of like an action word, like on the first part of the pasuk, like with the tzedakah.
Yeah.
Just a thought was that like maybe like it's not about the actual like bad or evil or whatever you want to call it, but just that the action is the meradif, I can't talk, and the action is the tzedakah, to maybe like reframe it as like two opposing actions. And maybe it's less focused on the ra'ah, but more about like the pursuit of it.
Okay, so let me just make sure I understand what you're saying. So the second half, the real activity, so it's not like that the main thing is doing bad and then it's just characterizing that as pursuing it. The pursuit is the thing that's being emphasized. Okay, so I get that part. And then what about the first half again?
Well, I was just using because like tzedakah, whether you look at it as the actual like giving of tzedakah or like to be righteous, I guess.
Yeah.
Like that is the action itself. So I was just framing them both as actions.
Okay, so being righteous and
Yeah.
pursuing Ra. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting move.
I just have a quick question,
Yeah.
and then I also just want to add something that Avital said.
Okay.
In general, when we say like a rodef, I
Yeah.
feel like I just can't get that out of my head. So I'm just wondering if we do use that in a positive context, because I've only heard
Yeah.
about it in negative.
Yeah, in fact, the positive context, this is not a well-known pasuk, but I'm gonna show it to you because it's a cool pasuk.
Is it about peace though? Hey Shalom v'rodei
Oh yeah,
Shalom.
Ohev Shalom, Road of Shalom. Yeah. That's not the one I was thinking of, but that's a more well-known one. But I want to show you this one because this is a underrated pasuk about that shows the essence of tefillah. Okay. Yeah, so this is the Rambam in Hilchos Tefillah 8:2. Mitzvah la rutz lebeis hakneses. It's a mitzvah to run to shul. Okay. Shenemar, as it says, v'neda nirdafa ladas Hashem. Let us know, or like we will know, we will chase after knowing Hashem. And the reason why I like that is it is interesting because I think first of all, I don't think people run to shul, and when they do, if they do, are they really thinking of it as I'm running to know Hashem? But that's how the halacha is characterizing the activity of tefillah. Tefillah is a type of seeking knowledge of Hashem. And like, if you really value that, you'll run to the opportunity. Yeah, so it is used in a positive context also.
And then also just on what Avital was saying, I think like, I really feel like it could be developed into an idea, because I was just thinking that like, at the end of the day, I think like the raw will always be raw, and like it will have negative repercussions like for you. And then also like we know like in Yom Kippur it says like, if you are a bad person and then you have bad deeds, like it's passed on and on like generations. So like it's not that it just stops, but that like the focus, it could be that we could read the focus on this pasuk to be on the actual action, because of the fact that like in the first half it's only talking about like I guess it's talking more about the reward. Never mind. It would have made more sense if it was talking about like yeah.
Ariel?
Yeah, just going back to what I was saying before.
Yeah.
I think it could also answer your question about like, what are the opposites of each other too, because even if you hold tzedakah is charity, it's not referring to being a tzaddik. It's or the second half is referring to a wicked person, just referring to the activity of righteousness, or the activity of going on the path of riches.
I missed the statement you're making. Say it again.
All right, let me just say it again. Okay. So before we were saying that we're not speaking about the individuals who are either a tzaddik or a rasha. We're speaking about on the path of it, right?
Yeah, right.
So if you say it's the path of it, I think the opposites are pretty clear, because miradef ra is you're just going on the path of becoming a rasha, but that doesn't necessarily mean not necessarily rasha, but on an evil path. But this first half of the pasuk is just saying, yeah, it's the same thing. You could go on the path of chaim through activities that are tzedakah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have like the framework of its side.
Right. Okay, let's develop this approach here. Okay, and I am also inclined to think that it's talking about someone who's on the path, but to me, the key phrase here is meradef ra'ah. So what would you say is the difference between someone who is doing ra'ah and someone who's meradef ra'ah?
I feel like meradef is more like intentional, that like you're
Yeah.
literally pursuing it. Whereas like if you're doing it, like it's more like, you could possibly like fall into a bad situation, whereas like pursuing is more like active.
Yeah. So more active is definitely I think a good way to describe it. And I could see that though referring to two things that would cause you to be more active in doing the raw. One is intentionality, like you were saying, like if I really value this thing, then I'm going to chase it. I won't just like dabble in it or like happen to do it. But the other thing that chasing to me implies is like a certain single-mindedness. All right, let me put this aside. Let me start on that note. Chasing something, there's a certain single-mindedness of it. Like this is the only thing I can see. But the question is, why? Is it because you value it and the person who doesn't chase it doesn't value it as much? Like maybe they don't recognize its qualities, or is it that you are so like caught up in the emotion that you're just chasing after it without thinking, whereas like another person might like hesitate or pause for a second and like and not just like throw themselves into it. So single-minded pursuit, I think, is like the raw. And the question is, since we're singling that out, like what does that imply? Like that the person who's chasing raw is running to his death, but not the person who like dabbles in raw.
Another question is like, let's say, I mean, you're saying Meradev Ra is like he's like further on his path to becoming a Rasha versus someone who's like just born into wickedness and like this is just who I am and therefore I'm going to do it.
Well, I'm throwing around two possibilities. One is that he's further developed in his wickedness, and that's why he's chasing it and not just doing it. But then the other possibility is just that he is not thinking and just running, running headfirst into the situation.
Is that a Russia?
No, it's not a Russia. I think a Russia would be actually that's good. That's a good litmus test here. So according to the first interpretation, a Russia would be characterized as someone who's chasing after Ra, but according to my second interpretation, then a Russia is more calculating, and someone who's Meradef Ra is more like a fool,
But do you think that it's more likely, like I was like, oh, like I feel like generally pursuing means that like you really are thinking about it. But I guess maybe it's like too much of a optimistic view of people that like we really think about all of our pursuits.
So to me, I hear what you're saying. To me, that's not why I'm inclined the other way. The reason I'm inclined the other way is if we're talking about someone who is a real Russia who's dedicated to evil and is chasing it, do we really need to be told that he's going to his death? But if you're saying that you're talking about someone who's just like running after Ra without thinking, it sounds like overkill to say that he's going to be going to his death, and that's the chiddush of the pasuk.
Wait, can you just explain the last?
Yeah. In other words, okay, I'll say this example just because it's on my mind. I was just watching. In fact, I'm like 15 minutes from the end. The Steven Spielberg remake of West Side Story. So I don't know if you've seen West Side Story, but it's based on Romeo and Juliet, and what do you call surprise, it's a tragedy, people die, right? So it's about these two gangs, and this is very Mishlei, because that's how Mishlei begins, is him warning his son not to join a gang. But I'm thinking about these gang members, and they are just they're involved in a life of crime, but it's not really they're not thinking it out. They're just like the gang leader says do this, and then they just run and do it, or they have an opportunity to show their toughness, so they just do it, or they feel like their territory is challenged, and they just start fights. It's just this unthinking running into stuff. And you might think to yourself okay, the Russia, he's the one who deserves death. It's true the Russia deserves death, and his lifestyle might lead to death, or will lead to death, but it's also the person who does this unthinking, like immediate chasing of Ra that could lead to his death also, even though he's not like a fully developed Russia, and that's what happens with these gangs is like they like they just act impulsively. And again, I'm just going to use Shlomo Melech's example, like the older gang members say, "Oh, come on, let's go rob these guys, and we'll all split the pot," And so the unsuspecting guy runs like an ox to the slaughter, or sorry, like a bird to the trap, is what the mashal he uses. And he just runs and he just gets killed. Is it because he's a real Russia? No. Is it because he like thought about it in depth and like planned to philosophy people? No. It's the running that gets him. Yeah, Avital?
Just at the same time, like just like what you're saying kind of triggered this thought, like even though like I don't know, maybe this is just another way to see it, that maybe it's a little bit the opposite, that somebody who's not necessarily like pursuing like bad or evil or however you want to translate it, it's like almost like a wake-up call, like, okay, like I'm not at that stage where like when you start to think about something, you're like, okay, I'm not that bad, I'm not going to die, but also that like there's life to be like gotten, or I don't know how to like say that like normal English, but to the average person, like
poetic,
to the average person, like we aren't necessarily thinking about like all of our actions. Like this is a good place to say like umarote frau, like limoto, like that's gonna lead me to my death. Like I'm not really pursuing, the average person I wouldn't say is, I don't think, actively pursuing like evil, but at the same time, like it's a good thing to realize like living your life in this way, or living your life in a way of tzedakah, is such a better way like to live your life. Like that's real life, like Chaim.
Yeah. Okay, so that in turn, Joseph, hopefully you'll remember your thought. That triggers another thought I have here, which is I've been thinking about this lately. You guys, have you ever looked at the tefillah? The minhag is not to say it, but there's a tefillah that you're supposed to say when you exit the base midrash. It's a really cool tefillah. If you haven't seen it before, then you're in for a treat. Hold on, let me just find it here. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay. So when you leave the base midrash, Omer, here's what you say: Moda ani lefanecha Hashem Elokai. I gratefully give thanks before you, Hashem, my God. Shesamta chalki miyoshve beis hamidrash v'lo samta chalki miyoshve kranos. That you place my portion among those who sit in the base midrash, and you have not placed my portion among those who sit on corners. Okay, that's like a idiom for like latim, for like people who just like waste their lives and speak lashon hara. She'ani mashkim v'he mashkimim. I wake up early and they wake up early. Ani mashkim l'divrei Torah. I wake up for words of Torah. V'he mashkimim l'davarim b'telim. They wake up early for matters of nothingness. Ani amel. I toil. V'he amelim, and they toil. Ani amel u'mekabel sachar. I toil and I receive reward. V'he amelim v'inam mekabelim sachar. And they toil and they do not receive reward. Ani ratz. I run. V'hem ratzim, and they run. Ani ratz l'chaya ha'olam haba. I run to the life in the world to come. V'hem ratzim l'be'er shachas, and they're running into the pit of destruction. So like what reminded me of that is what Avital was saying, of like the pasuk is kind of phrased as a wake-up call. And I think, by the way, Avital, I don't know if this is what you were thinking, but like I think that fits in with the word Cain. Like, yes, like indeed, like it's a word of like zeros, of like motivation, saying like yeah, you think you're just doing this little act of tzedakah, but you're really like investing in life, and you're like running towards life. And these other guys over there, they think they're just like doing a little bit of evil, but they're just careening towards their own death, So I think I'm sensing this is one of these pasukim where like it might be that the chiddush is stemming from the emotion that it's hitting rather than the idea. Like that's the route that we're gonna have to take to get the chiddush. Yeah, Yosef?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay, yeah. Go ahead. I'll tell you.
Just a comment on that. Like sometimes there will be ads, and it'll be like, "Has this and this and this happened?" Yes, then this is for you. Like it almost kind of seems like part of that, and I'd be interested to know if like kind of fit into the last pasuk as that, if you wanted to combine them.
Yeah, right. That's a good way to pair the pasukim. We'll look at that after we develop this one. Yeah, Yosef.
I think there's two ways to understand Chaim and Maves in here, which is that you can understand on a philosophical level, right? Which is that like really like you are like Chaim is like reality or like living a real life, and Maves is just saying that you're just nothing.
Yeah.
But there's also in the sense you could say that really like pursuing like Murad Ifra is like this like living in like kind of like a fantasy, right? Like there's some kind of fantasy of Ra. And you say really that pragmatically is destructive. That in other words, it's mace, like literally mace. It's not like philosophically, you could say Kin Tzedakah L'chaim, meaning that like just in terms of, because we're not talking about like a philosophical Russia here. That's, I mean, the way we're going with Murad Ifra, we're talking about a guy who's caught up in the fantasy. So like, I think that you can say that Kin Tzedakah L'chaim, meaning that if you have it thought out, right, is that lifestyle, right, even that action will lead you to like living a better life, right? Just like in terms of your general well-being. And then Murad Ifra Lamosa means that if you're stuck in this fantasy, you're just going to destroy yourself.
Okay, right? So I think your two ways of reading it can each be supported by making it in conjunction with the previous pasuk, because what we did in the previous pasuk, in fact, let me just bring up our ideas from last time. I know I said we wouldn't go there yet, but it's too close for me to resist. So we're not going to go through all the ideas, but Russia, Osepula, Shaker, Vizure, Tzedakah, Secher, Emes. So Russia does an action of falsehood, one who plants or sows righteousness, true or lasting reward. So I'm just going to go to my idea, because that's one I remember that's closest to what Yosef is saying. Because the Russia's entire value system is geared towards self-glorification, then all of his actions are in vain, since he'll ultimately either be destroyed or die, and nothing will be left but the destruction that he wrought. The one who does an act of tzedakah, i.e. distributive justice to facilitate systemic thriving, will by definition produce lasting good because of the ripple effect of enabling a natural system to thrive. Okay, it's not exactly, oh, sorry, you know what, maybe this is closer to Zach's idea. Okay, but we didn't finish Zach's thing that's on the WhatsApp. Okay, fine. So, all right, maybe I shouldn't have brought this in. Okay, I'll try to say it on its own. Russia Ose Ula Sheker is talking about the fact, you could read that as saying that he's doing an action of falsehood, meaning that since he's in a fantasy world of self-glorification, then his actions really have no basis in reality. That's why they're being called sheker. Whereas Zorea Tzedakah Sechar Emes, he's planting tzedakah, and planting has like a real world effect, and he's going to get true reward. Okay, so that if you read the last pasuk that way, so then this pasuk could either be a support for that, saying that tzedakah is the guy who does tzedakah is living in true life, and the person who is involved in this fantasy world is like death in the sense that it's like a philosophical death. Or you can say that no, that was the point of the whole previous pasuk, is to talk about like the falsehood of the Russia's actions and the truth of society's actions. And then our pasuk is coming to add, oh, by the way, you're also going to literally like enrich and extend your life, and the other guy is going to like bring about his physical death. Like they could be complementary, as opposed to like going on the same track.
Right, and I think there's a support to this, which is that it's not like only by like it that we're like what we said before, like it's not like a guy who's like a thought out like atheist, right? Like a guy who has a full thought process. This is what I believe is true, and he's wrong, but it's not that case. It's a guy who's caught up in the fantasy, meaning he's not even like there's no like he's not a good philosopher, right? So
yeah.
Right? So that's why it'll lead to his death. That's why it's specifically that case and not others.
Which death are you talking about again? You're talking about the literal death or like pragmatic death? Yeah.
Literal.
Right. So you're saying that the fact that he's not if you were a philosopher but just had an evil value system, then he'd have a greater chance of like not dying. Is that what you're saying? And
yeah, because you can like do well if you have a thought out like system, right? Even if it's wrong. Right. But if you're just stuck in some fantasy, then it's hard for you to even do well for yourself.
Yeah, so that's very similar, not the same, but it's similar to my reading of that. It's the emphasis here is on the unthinking chasing after.
That's
after
basically.
Yeah. Okay, right. Okay, so I feel like we're on our way to developing this to an idea. So let's just let's take stock of what we have here. I feel like we now need to think a little bit more about the first half. And by the way, Avital's idea, or Avital's like I feel like what Avital said is like a frame that we could put whatever picture we get from this idea, we could put it in that frame. You know, it's not like I feel like the lots of different, and the same thing with what Ariel was saying is like we can say that the pasuk is talking to someone who's like on the crossroads, ready to go in either direction, or on the way to being developing into a Russia, or on the way to developing into being a tzaddik. And this pasuk is saying, wait, think about what you're doing. One action could lead you to life, and then one giving into pursuit of Ra can lead you to death. But like that can remain firm, but we have to figure out like the particular ideas here, and then we can fit it into that.
What specifically are we missing? Can you like ask like a more pointed?
Yeah, what's
question?
What's the idea, or what's the chiddush? You know, I like what I have so far, at least in terms of like, to me, the okay, Maradif Ra'a, I'm really starting to be inclined here that this is talking about someone who is chasing blindly after evil, not necessarily Russia, not necessarily that their development is that advanced, but that because they're chasing it, then that's going to lead to their death.
All right, I have an idea.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I think, you know, on the path to becoming like a tzaddik or like a good person is a very challenging, you know, objective. It's very challenging, and sometimes you can get dissuaded.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult. You have a lot of, you know, temptations. You have a lot of, you know, bumps on the road. You know, maybe the chiddush of the first half of the puzzle is stating that, look, you know, it's like, well, you know, it's a journey, like one at a time. You know, doing one good deed at a time is ultimately will yield. It's like an investment. You know, your return on investment will be very, very good.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we kind of had similar ideas to that last time, and that I'm saying that as a good thing. That that like we didn't say it quite this way, but I'm going to say it now. Is that, you know, there are certain things that you have to do where you are making where it's a difficult journey, and you make sacrifices, and then you get the good thing. Here, it's you're not like, let's say, like, for example, you know, there's certain things where you can make a ton of money, but you have to like you totally work a stressed out, overworking, life, and like you put in all those years, and like you wore away like the best years of your life. Okay, and then now you end up with money, so it's a trade-off. You know, you go through this like torturous existence, and then you get this money. But with tzedakah, it's not like that. It is difficult, but each step of the way, you are moving yourself closer and closer to life, whether that be like the philosophical life or the life of like just mishleically happy life. You know, so it's encouraging you in that way, and it's saying on the other half, that you might be just, you know, eagerly running after this Ra, but like you're just setting yourself up. You could be setting yourself up to die. Like it could be, you know, something that is just not at all worth it, and you're risking like a tremendous amount by doing that. See, I feel like these are too general. Yeah.
Yeah, like the second half of the puzzle could be like very quick, and like the first half is like pretty slow.
Right.
Yeah. So you still feel it's too general?
I still feel it's too general. I still feel like I feel like I'm not getting a particular chiddush here.
It is a very vague pasuk.
It is, yeah.
I have an idea.
Sure.
On the first half, so I'm not sure if we said this already, because I feel like a lot of them are like very similar.
Yeah.
But I feel like we could be saying that the Cain is speaking about like, I think that especially nowadays, like it's very easy to get influenced by like Western like secular ideas of like what's good and what's bad. Yeah. And I think like maybe this could be saying that like there are good things that are in secular society, but then there's also Torah values. So I think that if we took that as being like, okay, like what is like a true righteous action? I don't know what that would be, but I think that maybe it could be distinguishing like righteous action that like is, let's say, just like would seem righteous, like from someone else's perspective or from a society or whatever it is, and then like actual true righteousness, like maybe it's speaking about the quality of what the tzedakah is.
Okay, so you're going with the interpretation that this is.
Did we just lose him?
Oh, I couldn't tell that was me or
Somebody-
not. I was like, oh no.
What was that?
All right, we got you back. Don't about it.
Oh.
For a second.
I cut out. Oh yeah, it's saying my internet connection is unstable. That's unusual. All right. So I'll say it again. You're saying, Rifki, that Cain tzedakah means true tzedakah as opposed to false righteousness or counterfeit righteousness.
Exactly. You can do righteousness or tzedakah. Like I don't think
Yeah.
it makes
Oh.
sense.
Okay, hold on just 1 second. Maybe that's the opposites. Okay, this is a completely new track. Okay, that maybe it's saying like, so why do people pursue Ra? Because they think it's good. Okay, right? So there's true tzedakah and then chasing Ra. Ah, there you go.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
in other words, like this.
you elevated it. That's even better than what I was saying.
Okay, yeah, that's good. No, but I think it fits in with what Avital was trying to do earlier, which is that the Muradif Ra is the opposite of the tzedakah. But I think, it's another thing. Okay, so now I'm totally switching tracks. I'm no longer saying that Muradif Ra is chasing it thoughtlessly. I'm saying the opposite, the other interpretation, that you think this is the good. Like you can't wait to do this, you know. And again, just we'll use our non-controversial extreme examples. Like the real Nazis were thinking that they were doing good, like that they were eager to do this, you know. That's the Muradif tzedakah. Oh, sorry, that's the Muradif Ra'ah, but it's thinking that it's tzedakah. And then there's the Cain tzedakah, which is l'chaim. Okay, now I don't know what the idea is, but that's a great way to read the pasuk. Okay, let's hold that. And Yosef, what do you want to say?
So very similar in reading, but a very different point.
Okay.
That maybe Cain tzedakah is saying, actually, I think, never mind, give me a second.
Okay, sure. So let's see, hold on. Second reading is true tzedakah is for life, but chasing one who chases evil, you know, I think the easiest way to, chases evil, evil, I'm going to say is chasing his death. Okay, I think that's like the, that would fit better.
Wait, are you saying that they're one and the same? That meaning like actual tzedakah will lead you to life, will lead you, not leave you to life, but and umarode fra'a, somebody who's like actually pursuing whatever is bad, meaning like as a wake-up call to like what are you pursuing and make sure it's actually in line with reality and what's actually good. Like
yeah, but that is what I'm saying. But I'm taking this point from Rifki that the pasuk is talking about real tzedakah and counterfeit tzedakah, you know, and the real tzedakah is something that will lead you to life, and the counterfeit tzedakah, it masquerades as tzedakah and people chase it thinking it to be good, but it's going to lead you to death. And now the question is, what is the idea the pasuk is telling you, you know?
Well,
See, okay, let me give another possibility for an idea here, okay? And I'm not knowledgeable about this topic, but I feel like I can rely on people that that like communism doesn't work. Okay, and like one of the biggest proofs that it doesn't work is every time it's been tried, it's failed. But like the other big thing is that you know, the societies that have most embodied communism have or socialism, I don't know like how many of these things are similar. They end up resulting in horrendous evils, you know, in perpetuating like death and destruction and stuff like that. So maybe the pasuk is saying like this: how do you know whether the tzedakah that you view, the thing that you're chasing as righteousness, is genuine or counterfeit? The litmus test is it leading to death or is it leading to life? Okay, is if you are embracing a philosophy that you feel very righteous about and you're engaging it, but everywhere around you, the people who are succeeding in this it's leading to death and destruction, that is not real tzedakah. That's a sign that it's not tzedakah. Real tzedakah, which would be supporting, you know, individuals in a way that like allows them to thrive, the sign of that working is going to be life is going to be everywhere. It's going to be causing people to succeed and thrive and grow and like have their needs taken care of. So it's the and again, that's like, I'll give you an example of this. I mean, like there are extreme like okay, like the just because it's a political topic, and I don't know if this has happened recently, but like that there are like people who are extreme anti-abortion people who blow up abortion clinics or who assassinate like doctors who are like performing abortions. And I think this is more common earlier on, or like people who are like the extremist animal rights activists, like PETA and those people, like will their alleged love of animals and desire to defend animals will go to the point where they will commit cruelty to humans. So like so they feel just as righteous as we do, but if because that's the nature of thinking that you're right. But if what you're doing is leading to death, or the system that you're embracing is leading to death, and again, I don't necessarily mean death like killing people, that's the extreme example, but like suffering, harm, like abuse, if it's leading to these things, then that means that your righteousness is not righteous. I'll give you another example of this. Hold on. So I'm reading this book by one of my favorite nonfiction authors, John Krakauer. Actually, Rabbi Feder recommended this book to me, Under the Banner of Heaven. It's about true story about two like extremist Mormons who went and committed murders in the name of their Mormonism. And like that's basically what happened. Is like one of the guys was a little off from the beginning, but the other guy was like a normal guy. And like he got involved in this, it's if you think Mormonism is a cult in general, so this is a cult within a cult, and he ended up just like terrorizing his family and all of his wives, because then this is like a polygamous a sect, and then like thinking he's getting these prophecies which are telling him to kill people, and like he's just going and then they planned all these murders, so it's just that guy thinks that he is doing real righteousness, but if he would look around and see that he's causing suffering and death, then that should clue him in on the fact that this is not really the right approach.
So just a couple of questions. So like, sure. I mean, what do we classify this guy? Meaning, what category of an individual, Mishlei individual, will we put him in?
It's a good question.
It seems like it's opening up a new category.
Well, here's the thing: is I think that this would be anyone who is along the developmental spectrum of becoming a Rasha. From just starting off, from just like being involved in. No, sorry, hold on a second. I gotta scratch that.
I mean, I don't know. You could have, like even righteous people who just have a messed up way of looking at something, but they don't intentionally want to be this. They're just misguided.
But how is that a righteous person then?
I mean, anyone can be misguided.
Yeah,
no, but misguided is different than like pursuing evil. Like that's more than.
But that's the whole point. He's not intentionally pursuing evil. He doesn't think it's evil.
Right. Well, here's what I'm wondering about. Okay, could this even be on a small scale? And I'll give you a controversial example. But like according to the Plain Pshat, David Melech with Bathsheba did some really bad stuff, and one of the things he did is he sent her husband to die, right? Like so and he apparently did not, it didn't hit him until Nasan Hanavi like rebuked him for it, with the story with the poor man, so like I don't even know if this is a Mishleic archetype of person, or if this is more of a Mishleic archetype of decision making, where you make a decision, and you just are so. The reason why you're so unquestioning is because you think that you're doing something that is really good, and really it's bad, it's counterfeit good.
It seems like this could be applied to anyone.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing: is it's not every kind of doing bad. Like the guy who robs the grocery store, doesn't think it's righteous. He thinks he's entitled. He thinks it's okay. He thinks it's justified, but he doesn't think he's doing righteousness. This is specifically talking about people who are pursuing Ra as a value, thinking it to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, Joseph?
So I have 2 points, but my first one is that, like, in your understanding, does this, like, on an individual basis, that might not be true. Like, on a mass basis, I think you're right, but, like,
Yeah.
individual basis, like, it might not be true. Like, you might have times where you have to lead to worsening people's lives, but for the
That's
good.
true. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But
Right.
mass, I agree with you. So you're saying, like, does this pasuk have to be talking about from, like, a leader's perspective?
No, not it doesn't have to be from a leader's perspective. I think it could be from, like, this could even, the death could even be in terms of your own death or your own stuff. Like if you are engaging in something that you think is really like a righteous thing, and you find that you are ending up like destroying your health and like shortening your life and like creating all this like suffering, then that should be like that should be like a wake-up call to really analyze, like, is this really like the correct path or not, yeah. You said you had 2 points.
Yeah, my second one is can I propose a completely different way of reading this pasuk?
Can you hold on to it for just 1 second? I just want to take Avital, if this is on our approach, then I'll take, yeah, go ahead.
I just had a question about, like, in terms of like ending in like death or whatever it is, like, I just don't exactly see like how far or whatever should you take this. Like, let's say, we clearly have whatever, maybe this is more, I don't know, I don't think it's opinion. Like a lot of our foods, right, are loaded with sugars and things that make people addicted to it, and we want to eat more, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the rates of diabetes have gone up significantly.
Right.
Or maybe it's even like the way that people, like you were saying, run their job, working every single day. People don't exercise, like literally heart attacks, whatever it is. Like, okay, like now we have different pills, whatever. But where in the chain, like, let's say Apple producing stuff, or a company producing stuff where they make stuff in China where there are children working for it, or let's say in America producing things that is literally, giving people all these illnesses, where do you stop? Where do you say, like, actually this is not such a, because things usually have benefits, like
Right.
cars, and now we have smog, but cars are really helpful, and
Right.
like with everything there's a cost benefit.
Right. So the way that I'm learning the pasuk right now is that specifically, so it's true, we pursue all this stuff. Like we pursue, like stuff that is bad for the environment and like bad for our health and all this other stuff, but we don't pursue it as righteousness. That's where I'm drawing the line. I'm saying when you do it and you think that by involving myself in this, I am doing good, for the world, but when in reality it's causing all this death, then that's when you should stop. Like an example of this is like the anti-vaxxers, who are, so they're not just like making a mistake. I mean, some of them are, but like the real anti-vaxxers are like crusading, like they, like, we have to like put an end to these vaccines, like that's a type of pursuing Ra that the pasuk is talking about, where you're doing it and you're all in, but you're doing it thinking that it is righteous. And when we drive cars, we might be causing a lot of harm, but we don't think it's righteous to drive cars. We just are used to it, or like we rely on it or whatever.
But we do think that, like, with what we do, that the reason that we're doing it is because we think it's more benefit. Like my brother says this, like the moment that you stop putting food in your mouth is when you have more harm than benefit from eating.
Yeah, right. But see, I that's why I'm saying that I don't think it's just the cost benefit analysis. I think there's a difference between the cost benefit analysis with the perceived benefits winning out versus I am doing tzedakah for the world. The doing of tzedakah, I think, is the key thing.
Can I ask another question on your?
Do you hear the distinction I'm making?
I hear the distinction. I just don't like, even though maybe if you would ask this guy in the book that you're reading at the time, like, oh, is killing people good? He'd probably be like, no, but I'm doing righteous things. So
right. Yeah. He'd say that these murders are God's will.
Right. So when you think you're doing the right thing, like, even if you are really doing the right thing, there could still be negative things.
Yeah, but they think that that's right. Like,
Meaning they think there's nothing negative about what they're doing. Like
I don't
those
think the
people that you're
pasuk is
talking-
talking
it's
about
for the greater good.
No, but I don't even think it's about that. I think that it's saying like, I don't think tzedakah means that it's always 100% net positive.
Right. Yeah. There's
right,
definitely
that's
form-
what I'm saying. That's why
Yeah.
it seems like much more like blurry.
What do you mean? Meaning, like, let's say with your car example, like I would say that, like, generally speaking, like cars and public transportation, all these things are good because of the fact that there's so much we can do with it. And yes, like there is like a lot of like issues with the environment that we have because of it, but I still think that it's a net positive like invention.
Let me introduce here another term, which is why I think I'm not seeing it as I think it's clear. It's not talking about tov. It's talking about tzedakah. You know, thinking that this is tov when it's really ra, that's a very, very broad mistake. But thinking that this is tzedakah, I don't know anyone. I know that there are people who drive cars and are bothered by the pollution, and people who drive cars that are not bothered by the pollution. I don't know anyone who drives a car and says like, I'm helping the world by driving cars. Like me polluting the air, this is good. Whereas there are people who think that, let's say, like, you know, in Afghanistan, like when we deprive women of education, that is actually good and righteous. You know, when we, you know, when you you know, discipline your kid by beating him, that is the right way to raise kids. Like it's the right.
Like the bad itself is the good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense.
And you know,
what
I'll
about things that we do say this though? Like, let's say, like, obviously, like, I don't know how much this applies nowadays, but Amalek, the killing of Amalek,
right.
or like, I don't know.
Righteous.
Right. I mean, yeah, there are going to be cases where like it's you know, I think that's what Yosef was pointing to, is you can't just like look at an individual instance of it. I think it's really talking about a derech hachayim. Like if the way that you're living in a certain area, I don't mean your entire life. I mean like you know, like look, in war, like you do need to kill your enemies, right? But the, you know, there's a difference between someone who you know, says like like Harry Truman, who decides to drop the atomic bomb in order to end the war, right? He's making a decision that's killing tons of people, right? But he's not a guy who's like, we need to go and just bomb everyone who opposes America. There's difference between like a derech hachayim, which I think this pasuk is talking about, and like particular actions. And maybe I shouldn't have brought in the David and Melech example, because that's really not a derech hachayim. That is particular action. So I retract that example.
Okay, it makes more sense now. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll just give, sorry, let me just give one more. Maybe this will help also. The Rambam has two categories of people who have character traits that need work. Okay, so the first person is in Hilchos Deos chapter 1. So again, but Rambam's basic system of Hilchos Deos is every midah has two extremes and then a middle. And if you are, the goal is to be in the middle, right? So, and the extremes are both bad. So like, again, easy example is, you know, people who are spendthrifts who can't save any money, and then people who are misers who can't spend any money. And then in the middle is someone who's frugal, who can spend when it's rational and save when it's rational. So so one type of character problem is you find yourself on the end, okay? And on the extreme, and you need to get to the middle. Okay, that's one type of character problem. But here's the other type of character problem, is he calls it chuli hanefesh. Okay, so here's his paragraph here. Chuli haguf, those who are sick in their body, tomim hamar matok v'matok mar. They taste the bitter as sweet and the sweet as bitter. V'yesh min hacholim mishum is ave v'tayv l'ma'achalas she'enan ru'in la'achila. There are those people who are sick, physically sick, who desire foods that are not fit for eating. Kagon ha'afar v'pacham, like dirt and coal. The sonei ha'ma'achalas atovim, they hate good foods. Kagon ha'pas v'basar, like meat and bread and meat. Hakol v'rovacholi. Okay. Kach b'nei adam shenafsho sehem cholos. So too people whose souls are sick. Okay, which is a combination between what we would call, it's a hard line to draw in our society between character flaws and mental illness. Like, because our mental illness gets into areas that are not character flaws, you know, like depression is a mental illness, but it's not a character flaw. But then like being a narcissistic sociopath or whatever is, might be mental illness, but it's also a character flaw. Okay, so like whatever. So here's what he says. Who are these people? They misavim va'ovim hadeos raus. They crave and love bad character traits. V'son'im haderech hatova, and they hate the good path, and they are too lazy to walk on it. It's very heavy upon them, according to their sickness. Now here's the pasuk I wanted to get to. Yeshayahu says about these people, woe unto those who call evil good and good evil. Samim choshech la'or v'or la'choshech. They make light, darkness into light, and light into darkness. Samim mar la'matok u'matok lamar. They make bitter into sweet and sweet into bitter. Regarding them, it says in Mishlei, they abandon the paths of uprightness to walk in the paths of darkness. So this is like beyond where you just happen to find yourself attached to something bad. This is where you're calling that which is good bad and bad good, and like you're hating the good and like running to and embracing the bad. Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just on the way we're reading it, it seems like the approach that we're proposing now, Umaradif Roth, thinking what he's doing is righteous, but in reality it's not. Like it's gonna, and the limit is death to him or to anyone, right? Yeah. So your minor question on lemoto being possessive,
yeah,
how would you answer that?
That's a good question. Right. Yeah, that does make it sound like it's his death specifically, right? Not just death in general. Yeah. That's a good kasha on my approach.
Just a question about the meforshim. Does anyone take lemoto as like something like kares, or is it like specifically like literally his death?
No, I think there are those who take it that he dies in terms of losing olam haba. Yeah. Well, Ariel, I'll tell you one thing. The Targum doesn't say his death. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're good. All right. All right. Close the book. I'll see you next week.
No, I agree. It's not the smoothest read for mine for that part. But I'm not gonna. The idea I like too much to abandon it. Okay. Let's hear Yosef. Let's hear your other approach.
Okay. So maybe Cain Tzedakah, like we said before, is like true righteousness. So maybe it's saying that only if it's like really for the right reasons. Like you might be doing tzedakah, right, good things for the wrong reason. But only if it's really for the right reason will you actually like will it be l'chaim. Like there's I think it's like an emotion to say you see like a lot of people who are like very rich and like give donations just for their image, like they might think of themselves as like, oh, I'm doing a good thing. Right. But there's like an opposition to that emotion, which is that no, even like if you're doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, it's still lemosa. Now I don't know if that fits in Muradif.
Yeah, so let me just comment on the first half because I think that's a good job for the first half. That I think so. When you give tzedakah, so okay, actually this fits in very well with the last pasuk. The last pasuk was someone who does any act of tzedakah, okay, and that can be for any reason. And that was in fact the idea we said is that any time you do something that contributes to the welfare of the system, there will be good effects and you'll get good reward. However, what this is saying now is true tzedakah, meaning that has to be for the right reasons. Only that is going to be l'chaim. So what is true tzedakah and what is l'chaim? So perhaps it's like this, is that, true tzedakah is when you give tzedakah because you recognize this person is another tzelem Elokim who is a creation of who was created by God and is no different than you. And the only difference being that you have resources that they don't have, and therefore you're fulfilling God's will to sustain to like sustain this person. So when you do that, it ceases to be merely a physical act. You are perfecting your soul and getting chayim in olam haba when you do that, because it's an intellectual perfection as well, not just it's an intellectual perfection that is actualized by enacting it in society. Like I can recognize on the one hand, everyone was created b'tzelem Elokim. Okay, great. I can also do an action where I give a poor person food. Okay, great. But when I see the tzelem Elokim in that person and see that this is the same as I am, and God gave me bechira to be able to like be an extension of his will with and I do that, then I'm like actualizing my recognition of the reality of Tzelem Elohim and God's creation. So it's like that's going to actually get me Chayim in Olam Haba.
But
Okay.
I think I might be able to explain Meradef Ra Lamoso.
Okay, good.
Meradef does not mean the action; it means the pursuit philosophically.
Okay.
Meaning, that's why you switch it from Kain Tzedakah L'chaim, right? To the action of Tzedakah L'chaim. Meradef means as like if the underlying principles, right? I'm saying Meradef means if the underlying principles are Ra'ah, then that's Lamoso, right?
Yeah.
Not that the actions themselves are Ra'ah, but if the underlying principle is Ra'ah.
Okay, so how does that relate to the first half?
Because what I'm saying is that Kain Tzedakah L'chaim, right, is that really if you do something for the only if it's Kain, right, Tzedakah L'chaim. So, but if you are even doing, if the underlying principles are, actually that's saying the same thing. I don't know how that's different.
So my question just is more of a localized question, which is the subject of the first pasuk is true act of tzedakah, and that's going to get you Chaim, which is either like philosophical Chaim or Chaim in Olam Haba, and Meradef Ra'ah Lamoso. So I guess my question is like this: is what is in between these two things? Like, and I think the way we were learning is like really the previous pasuk was in between the two things. Is that in between is a person who does tzedakah but not for the true reasons, and then similarly someone who does Ra but is not Meradef Ra. Is that like? Would that be I think that'd be like the natural way to read it according to your understanding. And the question is why? Yeah, what is in between these two? So we know what's in between. True tzedakah is for Chaim, but then someone who gives tzedakah not for the true reasons does not get Chaim, right? Maybe he just gets the good reward. On the other opposite extreme, you have someone who pursues Ra, he gets Maves, and then but then someone who just does Ra doesn't get Maves, right? I think those would be the four categories.
Right. What I was trying to say earlier is that Meradef Ra'ah Lamoso means that like it's not a guy who's like I'm trying to understand Meradef in a new way, saying that Meradef, I don't know if it fits. I mean, I'm trying to say that really it's saying that Meradef means that that's like his underlying principles.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't know if there's
kind of what we said earlier, that's what makes people pursue stuff is that they're doing it intentionally as a value.
Right. So I'm saying that Meradef Ra'ah Lamoso means that it's the contrast to Kain Tzedakah, which is that even that it's saying Meradef Ra'ah Lamoso is the opposite, which is that Kain Tzedakah L'chaim is the like perfected tzedakah.
Yeah.
But Meradef Ra'ah means that even the like including the good things and the bad things that are for the underlying principles of Ra'ah are all of us. That's one category.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I see what you're trying to do. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if it makes sense with Meradef, but
yeah, no, I see the move you're trying to make. I feel like it should be doable. Yeah, Ariel.
Can we go back to your idea again? I think I have an answer for you.
Okay, sure. For the Moso?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that I think that it could be possible that we're just we are talking to this individual, Meradef Ra.
Right.
And maybe and for him to truly understand like that it's harmful,
yes,
that this righteous thing is not actually righteous.
Yeah.
And he obviously won't recognize it through through other people dying, because in his framework that's like a good thing. Right.
Yeah.
But he may recognize if there's harm to him.
Right. That's a good point. I did not pick up on the fact that my approach here is directed at the person who's Meradef Ra. Right. It's not really directed at the person. Yeah, that's a good call. And
it's interesting because like the first half of the podcast is it's l'chaim, like to life, like for himself or anyone. Yeah. But the opposite is just death in general. But like in his framework, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, all right, that's good. I think that's a good answer for the minor question. That it's like because it's not essential to the idea, but it does contribute to the idea. That's the kind of answer you want to minor questions. Yeah.
Well, can you summarize like the whole the second approach?
The approach that second approach, the one that
after like our first, like about the true tzedakah approach, like the one that we just said.
Oh, the one that we just said that Yosef was saying?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we really have half of it so far, which is that I do think it reads better with the end of the first half. So in the end of with the second half of the previous pasuk, in the second half of the previous pasuk, we said Zorea tzedakah secher emes, that if you just do any act of tzedakah, of distributive justice, you will 100% get a good reward, because you're rehabilitating the system, and that's going to have a ripple effect. It doesn't matter what your motives are. It doesn't matter if you're a tzaddik at all. Okay. However, the only way you're going to get chayim, which either according to Yosef means like be living a true philosophical life, or if you want to just take it into the olam haba thing, the only way this is going to affect your soul, okay, is if you give true tzedakah, which means you give tzedakah in recognition that this is a fellow tzelem Elokim who has needs that I can supply to fulfill the will of Hashem. Then you're not just like, I hate to be like, I don't want to downplay like tzedakah shelo lishma, but like you can train a little kid to give tzedakah, right? And the act that the kid does is going to have real good in the world. But is the kid changing his soul when he gives tzedakah? No, he's probably changing his midos, but not his soul. So to have real chayim, you need to actually, your tzedakah needs to somehow affect or stem from your soul. And the only way I can see that happening is in that when you're emulating God by recognizing that this is a fellow Tzelem Elokim. So that's like a solid first half of this idea. Second half, we're still struggling with.
Also on that, do you have to interpret that as like just like the action of tzedakah, or could you also apply that to like just being righteous in general, or does it have to be specifically?
It's a good question. I think you can. I would definitely feel comfortable limiting it, or extending it to acts of righteousness, not necessarily even acts of tzedakah, but just like we said, Zorei tzedakah here means any act of righteousness, even if it's not like giving tzedakah. So I'd be fine saying this here. I feel like if it were talking about being righteous, if that's what you mean by being righteous, then I agree.
As opposed to
being a full tzaddik.
Oh no,
then I feel like I would say that. Okay, yeah.
I would say tzaddik.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Let's just work on it a little bit more. Muradif ra'alamoso. What would be the opposite of this idea? So the idea is like, it's like an evil lishma, right? Not lishma, but like you're doing it as a value. And then that's going to lead to your death.
The problem I have with it is that it may not lead to your death. Like you might have, like, you can have halal lishma bo lishma, right? Yeah. So that's why I'm like struggling. Why would this lead to mimosa? But maybe like, I don't know.
When you read it as yeah.
When you say mitoch halal lishma bo lishma, there's all of the chazals about how anyone who learns Torah shelo lishma would be better if they were never born, right? Yeah, I know. Whoops. Yeah, no. So and then the Gemara asks the question. So, well, I thought mitoch shelo lishma bo lishma, and then it says, well, the better if you're not born is a statement that's a specific lo lishma, that's lakanter, that if you're doing it to like break people down. But then there's another interpretation I heard, which is that when we say la'olam yasok adam Torah mitzvos afilu shelo lishma mitoch shelo lishma bo lishma, people hear that as, oh, you should learn Torah shelo lishma. That's good because it'll bring to lishma, and they focus on that will bring to lishma. But what they don't focus on is like when you're doing a shelo lishma, like you can make the argument that is like worthless, not worthless in the sense of actual worthless, of potentially worthless, because it's going to lead to lishma. But like the way all right, let me back up. The way the Ram says it when he's going through his whole mushal with the kid and the candy is, the kid starts learning not for the Torah, but for the candy, and then for the shoes, and then for the money, and then for the kavod. And then the Ram says, kol zen neguna. All of this is disgusting. He says, because you're making an end into a means. You're learning Torah so that you can get kavod, right? So there is an argument to make that as long as you're in a shelo lishma framework, it's a distorted thing. And the only reason why shelo lishma is good is because it brings you to lishma. So I don't know what this has to do with this, but I'm answering you this question. Yeah.
Maybe you could say that a Muradif Ra is saying that like the lo lishma could disguise itself, right? Like you might think halal lishma bo lishma, right? You might think like even though you might even think that, oh, I'm doing the right thing anyways, it doesn't really matter whether or not like I'm doing it for the right reason, and I'll arrive at the right reason later. But like it's saying really no, there's a lot of destruction that can come your way because you can like there's many things that happen. First of all, you can keep with your underlying principles, right, that are already evil, right, they're corrupt, and then you'll think you're doing good, right? And so then that will be the most so. Or you can even say that you will actually, that could be like lamavas, and really like all the good actions you do are not even like really good. They're just like they have a net positive effect, but they are not
right.
Good.
Right. You're really going to your death, even though you might be benefiting other people along the way. But yeah. Right. Yeah, I hear that. It seems overly harsh though. That's the thing. Rivki.
Yeah. Like I feel like I keep losing the second idea a little. So I was just trying to answer like about the second half. So
Sure.
if it's not applicable, then like whatever.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
But I was just thinking like, could we read this second reading as a like almost like a mida connected mida or like a natural consequence thing that like in the first half we're saying that like righteousness, true right. Yeah. So like through righteousness, and with the intention of this is a Salomon came and therefore I am doing righteousness in order to, act like Hashem and like all the benefits that come with that. And then the second half being that like, if you're on the opposite spectrum of that, then the natural consequence of that will be death.
Okay, I'm so stupid. It never occurred to me, maybe this occurred to everyone else, that Muradif Ra does not have to be you're seeking like Ra. It could be like you're Muradif to cause Ra to other people.
No, it never occurred to me either.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say, but I didn't express it that clearly. But
no, but you set up the opposites in the correct way. That the guy who's doing tzedakah is bringing life to another human being, and as a result of that, then he gets his own life. God, he as a natural result plus hashgacha plus olam haba, whatever it is, he gets his own life. So that's fine. If you just like, let's say you like take advantage of somebody just for some like benefit, right? All right, that's not Muradif Ra. But if you are like intentionally going and then like harming another person, like you recognize that this is another person and I'm just going to destroy you, like real again, anti-Semitism is a good example of that. The real anti-Semitism is like I'm out there not for any gain, I just want to destroy you, so then that's going to lead to your destruction. That's a much smoother way to read the pasuk that fits in with the Mina Keneged Mida and stuff.
Do we ever answer like what's the difference between true tzedakah versus just tzedakah?
Well, the way in the idea that Rivki and I had, then true tzedakah just means that it's in line with truth, whereas false tzedakah is something you think is righteous but is really wicked. And then the way that Yosef is talking about the true tzedakah is tzedakah lishma versus tzedakah shelo lishma. I think those are both good ways of reading true versus false tzedakah.
So did we come up with like 4 different ideas today?
Well, I'm remembering more clearly the last 3. So let's just state the last 3 and you tell me if I'm missing one. Okay.
All right.
So there was the idea that the Rivki and I had from the first part, which is that the pasuk is about the pursuit, how to tell the difference between true righteousness and counterfeit righteousness, which is that if both of them feel the same, okay, but if one of them is leading to Chaim, then that is an indicator that it's true tzedakah. Whereas if one is leading to Maves, then that's an indicator that it's counterfeit tzedakah. Okay, and the parameters of that are still unclear. Like, is it just to you? Is it a lifestyle thing? Is it, is Mavis literally death? Is it just like, is it harm? Whatever. But that's interpretation number 1. Interpretation number 2 is Yosef's, which is which again I like conveniently ignoring the second half and then treating Yosef's idea as the second half of the previous pasuk and the first half of this pasuk. Zorei tzedakah sechar emes, kain tzedakah l'chaim. Okay, that if you plant tzedakah, then you get a good reward, which means if you do tzedakah for any reason, it's going to have a good outcome. But if you but true tzedakah when you do it, recognizing another Tzelem Elokim and acting like God by, in the sense that you're providing Hashem's creatures with what they need, that's going to perfect your soul. And that's like real Chaim. Okay. And we didn't quite work out the second half of that. And then there's this third idea, the Mida Connected Mida idea that Rivki just said, which is connected to that, which is that if you do bring life to someone else, then you'll get life. And if you intentionally seek out the harm to another Tzelem Elokim, then that's going to be your death. You're negating your Tzelem Elokim by doing that. Yeah. So those are the three like sketched approaches that we have, even though they're not all fully worked out. I really would like to do meforshim, but I have to go now. So we at least we got some ideas here, and maybe we can continue in the Mishlei after party earlier in the week, because I tend to respond earlier in the week and kind of like lose track of things later on in the week. So yeah. There is just point out, just for if anyone's listening to it or wants to look down on their own, the Malbim gives an excellent interpretation of last week's pasuk. He connects the two pasukim. He gives an excellent one of last week's pasuk, which is very much in line with some of the stuff we did. I did not quite understand what he says for today's pasuk, so I have to come back to that. And then who else do I want to call your attention to? Meiry says that tzedakah in this context means perfection of midos. Okay, not righteousness necessarily, but perfection of midos. And but he doesn't really explain a lot of these meforshim don't explain this very much. Like Rabbeinu Yona, like where did he go? Rabbeinu Yona is extremely short. He just says the emes bli safek kain hatzedakah l'chaim v'chein ein safek ki hamradef ra'a masmin u'machazer lahara labrios. Says it's indeed tzedakah is for life and is true, and without a doubt, one who chases evil constantly will seek ways to bring about harm to people. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. All right, next.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I'm not sure what they're getting out of it. I'll just read you one more. The Rabag does say that this is about Olam Haba. Kain yimashech mimena hasagas hachaim. Truly, then the attainment of hachaim hamitim, true life, that's Olam Haba, will come from this, from tzedakah. Ki chelik hadavar b'mitzius asher hu b'hachaim b'chelko be'emet. Oh, okay, no, he gets into some philosophical terms I don't understand. Okay, yeah. All right, I gotta go. But all right, I'm glad we got some stuff and good approaches here. Okay, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Bye.